right, it's 11.
It's not the big enough concern. So.
All right, it looks like it's 11 o'clock. Just let me know, Jim and Brooke, when you guys are ready to.
You're live.
We're live, okay. Great, well, I'm gonna go ahead then and call the Coastal Permit Administrator hearing to order. Today's date is September 9th, 2021. It's 11 a.m. My name is Julia Krog. I'm the Assistant Director and was deputized by Nash Gonzalez, our Interim Director, to act as Coastal Permit Administrator today. So we'll start off with determination of noticing.
All items on the agenda have been properly noticed.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brooke. So then moving into our regular calendar, we're going to start with case 3A, which is CDP 2019-0032. The owner applicant is Scott and E. Wahlberg, and the agent is Wind Coastal Planning, and our staff planner is Juliana Cherry. Could I get the staff presentation, please?
Certainly. Planner Juliana Cherry with Mendocino County. Pleasure to present this project to you, which up until yesterday, the applicant was still thinking about comments from the California Coastal Commission, and the project has been scaled back from what was originally proposed and the staff report prepared. A staff report is available online, and a mitigated negative declaration, and then an initial memo, a supplemental memo, and a second supplemental memo. So I met with the applicant about the time that the staff report was published, and we went over the conditions of approval and made some modifications to those conditions. At that time, I think we had received some comments from the California Coastal Commission, which I also shared with the applicant and their agent. Then after that meeting and the publishing of that initial memo, the applicant asked for some clarifications, which staff was completely willing to consider and recommend. So that was the reason for the second supplemental memo. The second supplemental memo includes some additional information that I'll talk about in a minute. And then the third memo that was published this morning, the second supplemental memo, is in response to the applicant's request as of yesterday. When filed, the applicant asked to build a single-family home on a coastal bluff property that's within the appeal jurisdiction of the California Coastal Commission. It's roughly a 1-acre property located 1 mile north of the town of Wallala, and it's on what I would consider kind of like a cul-de-sac. It is west of the intersection of Big Gulch Road with State Highway 1, located at 47101 Big Gulch Road, Wallala. As we've talked over the last several years, we've talked about how the North Wallala Water Service District is not able to provide will serve within their district boundaries to new development. And so the applicant needed to find an alternative source for groundwater extraction on site. And that gets to our chapter 20.516, which talks about things like septic, water, transportation, access to utilities. And in there are requirements regarding proof of water. We talked about throughout the application submittal, review, referral, we talked about phasing this project. The first phase would be to do the groundwater testing, and staff was completely agreeable to that. And the second phase would be following the groundwater testing, the applicant could proceed with the approved project, a single family home on a coastal bluff property. Commission staff comments were received some time ago, but they really focused on the geotechnical bluff setback in the report. And the comments received in the last couple of weeks have been in response to the published staff report and requests to have that proof of water test completed before the Coastal Permit Administrator considers an application for a single family home. And yesterday, the applicant really agreed to this separate process. In talking with the applicant's agent yesterday, what staff suggested we could accommodate is today talking about approving just the test wells on the Coastal Bluff property. And then within a short time of finding the results from those groundwater drilling test wells, the applicant would apply for another coastal development permit for the single family home. And it would be a separate application, separate from the one under consideration today, which is CDP 2019 number 32. So the original project description is described in this published staff report, states a standard coastal development permit request to construct a single family residence with attached covered deck, 2-car garage, driveway, 2 test wells with 1 to be converted to a production well, water storage tank, fencing, and septic tank with connection to community sewer and connection to utilities. The proposed development area is less than 100 feet from surveyed environmental habitat areas, or ESHA. With adoption of the recommended mitigation and avoidance measures, construction would occur in the least damaging location and outside of the mapped ESHA. Most of the property is either ESHA or buffers from ESHA. So the proposed development is within the buffer area. The recommended bluff setbacks is 26 feet. A coastal habitat mitigation and enhancement plan prepared by WRA in 2020 includes recommendations to enhance the site following construction of the proposed residence. The majority of the residential footprint is within the buffer area, as there's no other feasible site available on the parcel. Recommended conditions would require ancillary structures to be located more than 50 feet from the ESHA. This includes the water storage tank, propane tank, flagpole, fencing, and others. So that's how the project was published and in the staff report. And I want to point out that the 2 test wells were a part of that description of the project. So today, staff is very pleased to present to the Coastal Permit Administrator the 2 test wells, so that the property owner can proceed with groundwater testing and demonstrating proof of water. But there's still some aspects to talk about. This is a highly constrained site, and even the test wells would be located within the buffer area. So the staff report includes recommendations regarding the groundwater testing, how to protect the sensitive habitat in preparation of doing that drilling, and then what to do after the drilling has occurred. So there are some very relevant things, even in the original staff report, even though it encompasses a much larger project than what is being presented today. If you have questions about the staff report, I'm happy to go over that, but I'm just going to move on to the memos. So since there were so many, and I apologize for the amount of reading required for this project. In the first staff report, erosion hazards and groundwater resources is the subject line. Staff had received comments from the Coastal Commission and a request for clarifications to some of the conditions. So staff clarified, provided additional detail regarding habitats and natural resources, that they are on site, that the recommendations are supported by the Coastal Commission and statements from the applicant's agent, and that future uses within the ESHA buffer would be limited. And then some clarifications to hazard management. Our chapter on hazards talks about bluffs and retainment. In preparing the original staff report and those conditions recommending approval, staff generously offered that with applying for a coastal development permit, the property owner could at least request to protect the structure that's the residence. At this time, though, the residence is not part of that application, and so staff is not going to be asking for a condition like a deed restriction or asking for conditions that would allow for future protection of development. So then, and the next memo, which the subject line is additional conditions and revised findings. This is in response to an action by the Board of Supervisors in August. They adopted Ordinance 4493, which basically has the effect on coastal permits of asking staff to make an additional finding regarding groundwater resources while the county is under drought. We really have a lack of water, and in the Wallala area, water, it's a critical water resource area. So it is prudent that staff consider the hydrology of the area and the geology of the area and make a recommendation, including a finding for the coastal permit administrator's consideration. So the main focus of this memo is when talking with the applicant's agent, one of the conditions really was missing something. So on page 1, I recommended some revisions to what then was condition number 22, that after construction, the property owner needed to do about 4 things, and 3 of them they would do prior to final occupancy, but the 4th thing, which I had listed as prior to final occupancy, actually takes 5 years. So we weren't going to ask the applicant to wait 5 years to have final occupancy. So that was the reason for the recommendation on condition 22. On page 2 of the memo, the second page of the memo, staff goes over groundwater resources and the findings and conditions. So I really dug deep into the 1982 groundwater study, which talks about various subunits, including the Point Arena subunit, which includes the Wallala area. And I compared the information and the characteristics described in the groundwater study with the information from, say, the geotechnical report, many of our mapping exhibits, like it's a critical water resource area, which is one of the exhibits to the staff report. And this helped me understand the characteristics, not only of the Wallala area, which is mostly upslope, it would be mostly bedrock, but at this particular property, it's really a bluff property, and there's seeps that are visible at the base of the slope of the coastal bluff. And so while the geotechnical report doesn't really speculate regarding hydrology at the site, it does describe many of the geology characteristics that are also described in the groundwater study. So I tried to knit that information together so that the coastal permit administrator could consider the site and groundwater, which is relevant because the groundwater study includes recommendations for water conservation, which is something the Board of Supervisors is asking staff to look at. So staff recommended at that time in the supplemental memo, I think 4 conditions reflecting the recommendations of the groundwater study and water conservation. And you'll see some of those conditions included in staff's final recommendation. So that moves me to the supplemental memo, the second supplemental memo. So the project as of yesterday afternoon was revised to be 2 test wells, drilling those 2 test wells to determine whether there is sufficient water at the property prior to an application for a single family home. So I went through all of the findings in that staff had been previously recommending, and I revised them to reflect the scope of the project. And in the second supplemental memo, the attachment B, attachment A is a strikeout version, attachment B is a clean version of the project description, the recommended findings, and recommended conditions. I added 3 conditions to the project. And let me just go over and look at them because I can talk about them in sequence then.
Maybe. Right there, the only thing.
So I'd like to point out on the recommended findings, finding number 4, I believe it is, talks about mitigation. And we are proceeding with using the mitigated negative declaration that was noticed with this project when it was initially published. And then condition number, finding number 2 talks about the geotechnical report and recommendations to reduce erosion hazards associated with drainage and runoff. And I'm trying to find the one that talks about the Board of Supervisors 4493. Maybe I don't call it out specifically in the.
I believe you have that in finding 6.
Thank you, finding 6, yes. So the anticipated water use of the proposed development has been considered in the supplemental memo that I described previously, and additional measures to conserve water are conditions of project approval. And that's what I want to get to, and that is on attachment B, conditions 14, 15. So in 14, the groundwater study recommended water conservation measures to install and maintain water efficient irrigation systems. Condition 15, that the groundwater study recommended other conservation measures to either keep rainwater on site in a retention basement or aid in groundwater recharge. And it gives some suggestions there. And then condition 16, water conservation measures to encourage groundwater recharge. And the project, even the drilling of the test well would preserve existing natural drainage and encourage the incorporation of natural drainage systems into the development of the site. Also, condition 19, staff is suggesting that during groundwater testing, which can be up to a 17-hour pump test, that a temporary water storage tank be on site to, with the intention to capture and store that extracted groundwater so that it could be reused either on site or maybe by an adjoining property owner. Condition 17, prior to the issuance of a building permit and prior to the conclusion of the expiration date, the coastal permit administrator or their designee shall accept a test demonstrating proof of water. So this is included because the purpose of this is to do some groundwater testing, and we would like to know that that's been completed and what the results were. And then within 90 days of the groundwater testing, the applicant is encouraged under condition 18 to file a request for a coastal development permit to authorize residential development. The other conditions that are included in this attachment B are the conditions that were included in the original staff report. I purposefully tried not to change the conditions from what was proposed previously by staff. I really don't want to make this a long presentation because it is really a test well project. And if you have questions, if I can help with any clarifications, I'm here and available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Juliana. Appreciate it. And yes, I've read all the memos. I know it was lots of materials, but I appreciate you walking through sort of the chain of events there. So next I'm going to look to our clerk, and I'd like to bring over the applicant and or agent to provide any comments or presentation they may have on this project.
Hi, this is Tara Jackson with Wind Coastal Planning. I am agent for the applicant. I would definitely like to thank Juliana Cherry and all of Mendocino County Planning and Building staff. This has been a marathon of coordination and research and analysis, trying to come to the most efficient and best path forward for the applicant, and we are very appreciative of all of the hard work that has been put into this project. And we, on behalf of the applicant, we agree with the conditions as written in the second supplemental memo. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I see we have Amy on the line here too. Amy, did you have any comments you wish to provide on this?
This is Amy Nguyen. No, thank you. Other than thank you so much to staff, county staff, Juliana, Cherry, for working through this. This was quite an effort. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I appreciate your comments. And then I'm going to look over to our clerk staff again and see, I'm going to open the public hearing and check to see if we have any requests for telecomment on this item.
Good. All comments were received have been uploaded to the website. We have received no telecomments on this case.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I will note for the record that I did read all of the public comment letters that appeared to be all in support of the proposed project. So with that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Coastal Permit Administrator. And, you know, I support the recommended revisions to the findings and conditions that were presented by staff in the second supplemental memorandum dated September 9th, 2021. And so with that, and with the agreement from the agent and applicant on the conditions, I will go ahead and approve the project subject to the findings and conditions per the memorandum dated September 9th, 2021, titled Second Supplemental Memorandum. So with that, the project is approved, and next starts the subsequent appeal periods. So thank you very much. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and move on to our second item on the agenda, which is CDP 2021-0004, which is for the state of California. And we have our staff planner, Sam, or Vandy Vandewater. And could I get the staff presentation, please?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Coastal Permit Administrator. Again, my name is Vandy Vandewater, Senior Planner with Planning and Building here at Mendocino County. So this coastal development permit is a request for American with Disabilities, or ADA, upgrades to McCarraker State Park facilities. These upgrades include the renovation to existing campground showers, restrooms, and parking areas. It includes the replacement of building aprons for the new structures. New development includes a new outdoor recreation area, new shower facilities, accessible drinking fountains, pathways between these areas. Additionally, the visitor center and host site will also be upgraded to include a new comfort station, accessible parking, a bus loading area, formalized ADA paths of travel, a drinking fountain, and new trash containers and plantings. And lastly, there is also associated development, which includes improvements and replacement of gas, water, and sewer pipes and the connections between those utilities and the new development. This is located in the coastal zone, in the community of Cleon, right next to McCarraker State Park. The project focuses on 3 areas within the state park, 2 campgrounds, and the visitor center and host site. The campgrounds include the Surfwood Campground, the Pinewood Campground, both the east and west sides of the campground, as well as the visitor center. Going through the LCP consistency, the project was found to be consistent with the land use and the zoning. With regard to the development and visual resource area, while parts of the project are considered and highly scenic, most of the development will be shielded by existing vegetation. There wouldn't be any visual disturbances as seen from Highway 1 for either the visitor center site or any of the campground developments. The project is considered within an ESHA, as all state parks are considered an ESHA. Therefore, development would be occurring within ESHA buffers and boundaries. However, the proposed project also is operating within a state park whose one of the intended goals is to protect the ecological and biological resources that are within the park boundaries. Additionally, the park has protocols which have been adopted as conditions of approval to help mitigate and resolve any impacts that would occur to biological resources. Additionally, the project was found to be consistent with the archaeological, the grading and erosion, the groundwater, the transportation, and the public access portions of the coastal element and LCP. Lastly, the project was found to be exempt from CEQA, and this is due to state agencies having the ability to determine what aspects of projects that are common for those agencies and determining that those are exempt from CEQA under categorical exemptions. Therefore, California State Parks found this project and filed a notice of exemption using sections 15301, 15302, 15303, and 15304. With that, the project, staff recommends approval of the project with the conditions of approval. Before I finish though, there were comments from California Department of Fish and Wildlife that I had partially incorporated into the report. There were 2 additional recommendations that need to be added as conditions, and therefore I provided a memo. Would you like me to read the proposed conditions, or?
If they're short, that would be great, just so we have them in the record.
Proposed condition 17, which is incorrectly referenced as condition 16 in my memo, focuses on amphibian avoidance measures, and there are 3 separate measures that were recommended. And then proposed condition 18, which is incorrectly labeled as condition 17 in my memo, focuses on providing mitigation for trenches by providing wildlife ladders so animals can get out of the trenching. And with that, staff recommends approval of the project.
Okay, thank you very much, Vandy. And so now I'll look to our clerk staff. Do we have agent or applicant available on the line for this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, then I would like to go ahead and open the public hearing and see if we have any requests for telecomment on this item.
We do have one person who has requested to telecomment. So when it is your turn to speak, please state your name for the record. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person, and speakers are asked to please address their comments to the Coastal Permit Administrator, to refrain from using any profanity or engaging in conversation with members of the audience or staff.
Great, so it looks like we have Anna Marie Weibel here in the meeting. Anna Marie, when you're ready, please state your name for the record and begin your comment.
Anne Marie Weibel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I wanted to thank your planner for answering my questions and submitting additional information. As you know, during the virus, it's really hard for coastal public to have access to the county office. And I have read the staff memorandum, which I think also maybe partially came about because of my questions. I appreciate that a lot. I still have a question. One, your staff member just mentioned condition 17 being actually condition 18, so I'm confused about that. And also, there were apparently two recommendations which are already included in the staff report. But what I did not see included in the staff report is the replacement trees should be monitored to ensure success. And your planner was told by Fish and Wildlife Department that 5 years should suffice for the trees and 2 years should suffice for special status plants. I don't know if that needs to be added as well in some of the conditions somewhere. Otherwise, I agree with the project and thank you for your work.
All right, thank you, Anna Marie. And I'll just look to staff just to clarify on the condition numbers. If I understood correctly, it was meant to be that the memo was labeled condition 17 and condition 18 being added, and it presently says 16 and 17. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And regarding...
Wait.
Oh,
You're on mute.
sorry, there you go. Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, that is correct. And regarding, California Department of Fish and Wildlife provided 4 recommendations. 2 of those recommendations were monitoring periods, and those, which I believe is what Ms. Weibel is wondering if those were incorporated, and they were. I would just like to point out condition number 12 has the vegetation of no less than 2 years, whereas condition 15 speaks to trees and that they shall have a monitoring period of no less than 5 years. So those 2 conditions by CDFW were incorporated into existing conditions. And then, correct, additionally, the missing conditions are what should be conditions 17 and 18 per the memo.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification, Vandy. I think that clears it up. So I appreciate those additional conditions, and I'll check with our clerk. Do we have any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
We do not.
Okay, excellent. So then I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the Coastal Permit Administrator. And I appreciate staff providing those additional clarifications and the memorandum. And the one thing that I saw that we just need to address within the permit here, and I'm going to make a recommendation to add, or not a recommendation, I'm going to add a condition, condition 19, which would state that the project shall incorporate proven water conservation technology in the construction of the project, including but not limited to low flush toilets, flow control inserts on showers or similar, and single control faucets. And my comment on this is that I realize they're only doing a portion of new development. So really this condition is going to be focused on the areas where they're doing new development, such as the new shower facilities. So that would address the water conservation. And then tied to that, I would like to add some additional finding language to finding number 2, and I will provide this to staff, so you do not need to scribble this down, that states that the anticipated water use of the proposed development has been considered in conformance with ordinance number 4493, and condition 19 requires use of water conservation technology. And that will close the loop on the urgency ordinance that was adopted by the board on June 22nd, 2021. And I'll look to staff. Do you have any concerns with either those, that condition and or the additional finding language?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. So with that, I'm going to approve the project subject to the amended findings, specifically the amended language for finding number 2, and the 2 new conditions, conditions 17 and 18, as specified in the staff memorandum prepared for today's item, and condition 19, as I read into the record regarding water conservation technology. And with that, the project is approved and can now proceed through the various appeal periods. And thank you, staff, for your presentation, and thank you to the public for your interest in the project. So moving down our agenda, are there any matters from staff?
No matters from staff.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, if there are any matters from the public. And I do see a hand raised from Amy Wynn with Wynn Coastal Planning. So Amy, when you're ready, please go ahead and unmute yourself and provide your matters from the public.
Great. Thank you, CPA Krog. and staff appreciate everybody's work always on these Zoom hearings. As you know, Coastal Commission just approved the modifications to the accessory dwelling unit regulations, which of course is very, very exciting. I don't think anybody was against any of that. I asked the Coastal Commission this morning to support the county in potential county pursuit of removing some barriers to be able to supply workforce housing through these new ADA regulations. And I'll kind of present these in reverse order. Oh, you can't see me. I'm so used to being able to see. Okay, so big idea would be that given our drought scenario, and it's given that it's been decades, I think, since anyone has successfully established any new small water district and small sewer districts, I think that it would behoove the county to somehow pursue implementing or encouraging the creation of small water districts and small sewer districts. This would allow some of these remaining parcels in density areas to be improved as septic requirements. We've got the replacement field that is required now, additional bedrooms, et cetera, et cetera. It's really getting very difficult to accommodate septic systems on these small parcels, as well as increased development, which would accommodate the workforce housing. Additionally, I encourage the county to work with environmental health to develop a system to improve alternative effluent treatment technologies that reduce the reliance on water for sanitation. So I know that we can have composting toilets in areas, but we always still have to have a designed septic system as well. So it kind of, defeats, removes the incentive for anybody installing a composting toilet system. Find alternative ways that reduce the reliance on water for treating black water. I think those things would help tremendously in achieving our goal for regular housing as well as workforce housing through the ADUs. Relative to utilities, even though we are in a drought era that is quite similar to the drought era of the late 70s that preceded the groundwater study and associated guidelines of 82 and I think it was 89, I forget when the guidelines came around. I think it's time to revisit that with another joint effort. That effort previously was a joint effort with the county, the Coastal Commission, and the California Department of Water Resources. And of course, given now that, with the drought throughout the state and recognizing how the drought is impacting our coast's ability to maintain full occupancy for our visitor accommodating services, which has the effect of reducing the TOT contribution into the county's coffers. I think, there is a statewide importance for being able to revamp this groundwater study and associated guidelines, as well as statewide importance for encouraging the creation of small water districts to support these various developments. Lastly, old topic, you've heard us talk about this before, which is certainly you still can't see me. I keep trying to using hand language. You can't hand gestures. You can't see. They're good hand gestures. Sorry, they're not bad hand gestures. It's a high bar of trying to meet the bar of proposing development that's 100 feet beyond environmentally sensitive habitat area, given that our interpretation includes special status plant communities. Just about every property has environmentally sensitive habitat on it, and being able to propose development beyond 100 feet is extremely uncommon. So specifically, and we will be working with county staff we're actually asking the supervisors if they could place on their agenda support for an LCP amendment to Chapter 2476 to include specific development criteria for special status plant community alliances and associations. And last little thing I didn't get to with the Coastal Commission is deed restrictions. Completely understand and support the need for recording a deed restriction. Would be super if the county could just simply develop with county council a form that gets filled out similar to the Coastal Commission form for a deed restriction, so that we don't have to burden county council for going through, you know, what an applicant has created from a template. So a form that gets filled out similar to the Coastal Commission one should be able to move through a deed restriction recording process and review much more quickly. That is it. Thanks for listening. I appreciate everything you guys do, and talk to you later. Bye.
No, thank you very much, Amy. And just to let you know, so I have seen those requests coming through for some of the items you mentioned. And so I'm sure the board, they will direct us at what point that falls into our work program to pursue those types of amendments. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other matters from the public today? Seeing no hands being raised. And so with that, I will go ahead then and adjourn the meeting at 11:41 a.m. And, and I'm sorry, I now see, just as I was adjourning here, I see a hand from Anna Marie Weibel. So if we could bring Anna Marie over to provide comment on the matters from the public. Anna Marie, when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Amy, for your comments. I also listened to and actually commented in regards to the Coastal Commission hearing this morning and in regards to the additional units. I am very, very concerned that there is no cap as far as housing is concerned, and I'm very concerned with all the Airbnbs and VRBOs and Vacasa and HipCamp. There are a lot of illegal sites, and it is too hard. You don't have enough staff to deal with code enforcement all the time. And we have dead-end roads, and we have incredible fire danger by providing fire rings for certain of these short-term housing situations. It becomes a huge issue, and people who vacation here, they want to live it up. They don't realize water is almost not available these days. They don't understand the fire issues, and it is very important that we have additional units for locals who work here, like even lawyers and doctors and nurses and teachers have no housing, or not, at least not affordable, and it's not available. So we should really try to, curtail all these additional short-term housings. It's just a real big issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna Marie. I will let you know that the board has previously given direction to our staff and to our office on reviewing vacation home rentals, both inland and in the coastal areas. However, that item has been deferred from our work plan for the last couple of years, but that may come back on our work plan in the near future. So just so you have that tidbit. So with that, seeing no other matters from the public, we are going to adjourn the Coastal Permit Administrator hearing at 11:44 a.m. And thank you everyone for being here today.